So I want to welcome everybody today to the Loyalsock Center for Healthy Aging. It's probably the first time many of you have been here, and the reason for that is COVID. The day we were slated to open is the day we shut down. So coincidentally, it was I'll say it was a good omen because here we are now, and we're even back better than we were before. I'm going to encourage you on your way out to please pick up the information on both this center, the Loyalsock Center, and the Riverwalk Center, which is across the bridge in South Williamsport, for all the activities and things that we have going on that will keep you going and healthy. Everything from yoga and Tai Chi, many forms of exercise, to games and cards and bus trips. And I'll give you a preview for those of you who want to go on bus trips. We have one coming up in December to the American Music Theater for their Christmas show. So keep an eye on the newspaper and it'll be in there, and you can sign up on the 20th. So welcome. We're very happy to have Representative Wheeler here today and the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General's office here today. I'm going to pass it over to them, and I'm grateful that they chose our center to come.
Thank you so much. A quick show of hands. Who has been in this facility before today? Show of hands. We've got 1, 2, 3. So she was right. There's a lot of you that haven't been here. It's an awesome facility. Thank you so much for making it available to us today. Mr. Mark Sortman. There he is. Mark Sortman, thank you. Mark, as most of you may or may not know, he's one of the best township supervisors Lycoming County has. But Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank all the supervisors for being instrumental in this facility for seniors. But thank you, Mark. Okay, a couple of things before I introduce our main speaker. I would like to thank Jamie Maggs, my chief of staff. If you call my office, that's probably who you will get. She's the master of fixing state-related problems.
Try my best.
Kind of a shame that we have to do that, but the incompetence sometimes at the state level is very frustrating. But Jamie is very talented at digging through the paperwork and the red tape, so to speak. But again, Jamie, thank you very much for everything you do for our seniors. Again, my name is Jeff Whelan. Hopefully everyone knows me, or otherwise I'm in trouble. But thank you very much for coming out for this. We did one of these right before the pandemic over at the South Williamsport Senior Center. Oh my, did we have fun. It was really a lot of fun. And what I really love about seniors, which I guess technically I am too, is that we've earned the right not to have a filter. So feel free to ask any questions. The only dumb question is a question that's not asked. So feel free when we get into the Q&A to fire away. Now keep in mind, try and keep your questions brief and your dialogue brief, because there's a lot of people, and I'm sure some others will be filtering in, so we don't want to eat up all the time on one specific question, because, again, I think this is very timely with what's going on, specifically with seniors and the crime against seniors. And I'm really hopeful that you'll take away some good information that you can not only use yourself, but also share with your friends and families, because quite honestly, the crimes that are going on now with the internet, which you're going to hear about, is all age groups. So, if you're knowledgeable, you've got to be armed and prepared. So, and again, that's the goal for today. Now, yes.
Okay, I don't need the microphone. We have bags back there. This is not just about scams. This is all kinds of information that's helpful to seniors about all sorts of stuff. I did have some pamphlets for a minute out so you could see sort of what was in the packets, but you're welcome to pick a bag up on your way out and kind of go through. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that's helpful. Okay? All right.
Yeah, so please, because I helped carry it in, it's heavy, so like my load going out. And also, do not be afraid if you have another family member to take a packet and give it to them if they were unable to join us today. But anyhow, back to South Williamsport. We had a hoot, we had a lot of fun, we learned a lot, and it's a shame that the pandemic hit, for this would not be my second one, this would be about my 20th one around the district, because it is very timely and it's very interesting. Now, with us we have Connor Farrar. I'll let Connor explain to you his title because it's really, really, really long. But he comes highly recommended from the Attorney General's office, and he's very knowledgeable about this topic. He does them all over the state. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over. He's got a few words, and then he's going to do a PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to save your questions, if you have a pen and paper, you might want to run them down or write them down if you're as forgetful as me at times. And so that you're sure to ask a question that's pertinent to you or your family. So with that, housekeeping, cell phones, silent. If you could, so we're not interrupting our speaker, which reminds me, I better put mine on silent.
We have pens, if nobody has them, and there are little notebooks in our
Yep, we have
packets.
pens and notebooks if
you need
anybody
them.
wants them, if they want to take notes. Restrooms are right there in the corner. If you do have to take a call, just take it out in the hallway if you'd be so kind. So with that, Mr. Farrar, you're on.
Thank you, Representative Lowe. Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Again, my name is Connor Ferrara. I am an education outreach specialist. I work for the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, Office of Public Engagement. So Representative Wheeland was correct. I have a very long title. You will find in a lot of state government agencies, folks have long titles, and it's frustrating to have to try and remember them. So the main thing you have to know about me is that I do presentations like this throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our agency and our office, the Office of Public Engagement, focus on quality of life and health issues for Pennsylvanians to protect folks from harm and to make sure that they are informed about the actions of criminal actors within the Commonwealth and in the United States overall. So the presentation we will be discussing today is sort of framed around the top 10 scams that we are seeing affecting seniors within the Commonwealth. This is updated for 2021. It is not inclusive of every scam that you will see, but it is sort of indicative of what we're seeing trending in the Commonwealth and what is affecting folks in our communities. So with that, we'll begin. The first thing I'd like to point out is over the last year and a half, everyone has been sort of accustomed to doing a lot of their business, a lot of their family connections online through services such as Zoom. This might be Skype, Zoom, Facebook, Messenger. It could be any type of messaging or video application where you receive an invitation. Now, this could be for a doctor's appointment. It could be for education. It could be through a class you're taking. It could be to connect with family. What we are seeing criminal actors do is replicate the format of these Zoom emails where you receive an invitation, click on a link, and then go into that presentation to actually conduct that meeting. What they're doing is creating false URLs, false links that lead us to malicious websites, which will then download malware onto our devices. So this malware, these computer viruses, can then be used to access our personally identifiable information. This might be things like birth dates. It might be an address. It might be a social security number. It might be information about a healthcare provider. All of this information is integral into the way we conduct our lives, obviously. We have to conduct our business online nowadays in a lot of ways, whether it is shopping, whether it is healthcare providers, and unfortunately that information is available online. So once we have a device, like our computer or our phone, that has been compromised by one of these links, a lot of that information is put at risk for folks to take advantage of. So one of the things we recommend is that if you are not anticipating, and this will be a common theme throughout this presentation, is that you are not anticipating receiving some type of communication like a Zoom link, like a delivery email for an Amazon package. If you're not anticipating that, it should raise a red flag. If you didn't sign up for a meeting, if you didn't order a package and you receive a message about that, it's a big red flag, because it could be fraudulent. So again, that's something we'll come back to, sort of that pattern of behavior, that tactic for these criminal actors to reach out to us. But it's sort of this concept of sudden contact and then a request for information or some type of action, like clicking on a link, like putting in your phone number or your email, whatever it may be, to attempt to access your personally identifiable information. That's just one example. You know, in that case, it comes through Zoom. But we're also seeing the utilization of social media platforms, for example, where I personally have been vaccinated and I have a vaccine card. That's a personal choice that I made to do that. And I have some personally identifiable information on that card. It tells where I was vaccinated, it tells my full name, and that information can be utilized to compromise some information about me that I maybe don't want to post online. So one of the recommendations we can make related to that is a lot of people are proud that they've been vaccinated, and they want to share that with friends and family. They take a photo of the card, maybe themselves in the photo, and they post it on Facebook, or they post it on Twitter, or whatever social media platform you use. That photo is then out there forever. So this is just one example of how we can overshare online, and it's one that's sort of prescient and in our daily lives nowadays because of COVID. But this could also be a driver's license. This could be any type of identifiable information. When I work with schools, for example, it could be, if you go to a private school, it could be the uniform that your child wears at that school. It could be information that is put out on the internet that folks can then locate the location of where your kid goes to school, which is something we want to be very careful about, or your grandkids. So one of the main things that we want to stress is that when you are sharing information about your personal life, that you're very careful about who receives that information, who is able to view it. So it does get quite serious. There are instances where these types of personally identifiable information can lead to identity theft, they can lead to stalking, all sorts of bad outcomes. So we just want folks to be aware that when they're posting something online, not only the people you want to see it might see it, the wider public may as well. This is a huge one now. Fake online shopping sites are really rampant these days. There are tons of retailers and even online pharmacy, quote-unquote, services, online pharmacies out there that are fraudulent. They will purport to sell a certain product. You will go onto their website, you'll put in your credit card information and order a product, and you'll never receive anything. Your credit card information, your bank information may be compromised by this website, and then they have your banking information or your payment information. These are unfortunately very common, so the recommended strategy for avoiding this type of outcome and avoiding your information being compromised by a fake retailer or a fake pharmacy is to go through a reputable source to conduct business online. So what I mean by a reputable source is there are resources out there, for example, by the Better Business Bureau, which provides a list of retailers that can be trusted online. So we do recommend that when you're going through your everyday life and you do want to conduct business online, you want to order something, pardon me, you want to order something, you do that through a reputable source. These are, again, unfortunately very common, and they do look incredibly convincing. They look just like the portals you're using. They may even mimic an existing retailer. So they may look like Target. They may look like Walmart. They may look like Amazon. But they may not be. So this is where we go to secondary sources like the Better Business Bureau, or we go directly to that retailer's website, for example. We go to Amazon.com and verify that it is coming through them. If we receive advertisements through email, through text message, through phone calls, advertising things like this, these retailing services, we should, instead of clicking on that link, go to the source directly. Go to Amazon.com, go to Walmart.com, whatever it may be, and go through that source directly. Celebrity imposter scams, believe it or not, are becoming very real. They're becoming real in the sense that we have instances where maybe a celebrity, after a storm, in the wake of COVID, goes out and says, hey, I'm conducting a charity fundraiser for the victims of this tragedy. They will then request that folks reach out to them and either donate to that or they will go about their own philanthropy. But what criminals are doing is pretending to be these celebrities through things like messaging applications, like Facebook Messenger, like text messaging, WhatsApp. I can name 20 different applications that they can do this through. But they will say, hey, I am this celebrity. I understand you've been affected by this. I want to send you $200. You just need to provide me with some banking information. So this is something that does catch people, especially when we are under duress. We've gone through something. We've gone through a loss. We're recovering from a storm, whatever it might be. Criminals take advantage of these things. It's an unfortunate reality of the modern world that we are easily accessible to criminals. They're easily able to communicate with us. And in that fact, they are able to manipulate us. So they will use any strategy available to them to do so. So this is another example of that. And again, the thing I want to stress is that when you receive a type of sudden communication from someone who is a celebrity or from a retailer or from a healthcare provider, that if they are asking for information for you and you need to provide it right now, it's money, it's information, it's personally identifiable information, whatever it is. They are reaching out to you suddenly, you're not expecting it, and they require urgent action. Everyone gets these, your car warranties expiring phone calls. I mean, raise your hand if you got that call this week. I would guess everybody has. They tell you in that call, you need to take action right now, you need to call us. Your car warranty is expiring and you're going to lose money. So that's a strategy that these types of scam artists will take to make us do something quickly without really thinking about it, and get us sort of caught inside that loop where we trust them enough to share information in the first place, and they promise some kind of reward for it. So this is another example of that, and again, it's a common theme throughout these. It's sort of all of these scams sort of follow the same pattern. It's that sudden contact. I'll share with you an acronym at the end. I kind of rolled my eyes at it when we first rolled it out, but I'll get there. Another thing, and again, talking about all the ways that the criminals will take advantage of us, we are seeing online romance scams where individuals will develop a relationship with somebody through an online website, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Match.com, or some kind of dating service, whatever it might be. They'll develop a long-term relationship with somebody that usually requires some kind of financial action. There was an instance, this was a case from the FBI that's in one of our presentations on this subject specifically, where a woman had a 2-year-long relationship with a man she met online. 2 years long. They exchanged emails, they talked on the phone, they texted one another for years. They had both gone through a divorce, allegedly. The woman believed the man wanted to move to a new state with her and start over. They set up a joint bank account. They both contributed money to the account, and after about 6 months, he disappeared, and all of the money was taken out of the account. The woman lost tens of thousands of dollars. And she never heard from him again. Ultimately, it was prosecuted by the FBI and went to prison. Some of the money she got back, some of it she didn't. And that's still ongoing. So they're still trying to recover some of those funds from that woman. This is something that is very real these days. It is unfortunately a hard subject to talk about because we all understand that folks want to be in meaningful relationships. Maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe you've gone through some kind of breakup, maybe you haven't been in a relationship for some time and you reach out online to try and meet somebody. I think that most folks have felt more socially isolated in the last 2 years than they maybe did the year before that. So unfortunately, this is a common occurrence, and the thing about it is that we want to recommend folks obviously continue, if you want to do that, if you want to be online, if you want to have a social media presence, do that. We don't want folks to not have that experience and not have that available to them. But be careful. Protect yourself. If somebody's asking you for money, hey, maybe that's a red flag. Let's slow things down. If somebody's saying, oh, I don't want to meet in person yet, that's a red flag. Let's slow things down. Maybe this isn't who they say they are, but maybe this person isn't who they say they are. So, it is all about protecting ourselves, making sort of common sense decisions in our daily walk through life. And, especially with this, it is easy for us to be caught up into something where an individual says they care about us, who says that they believe that we have life together, who believes that we have some future together, and we just need to put some money towards this and we can do this together. The betrayal from that, if it is a criminal, is incredibly painful. It's not something anybody should ever have to deal with. But unfortunately, there are folks out there willing to do this to people. So, again, be careful when we're doing anything online, when we're sharing information, particularly financial information, because this threat is unfortunately real. Medicare card, come on. So a lot of these we're seeing door-to-door scams. So folks will come up to your door, they'll knock on your door and say, hey, I'm from Medicare, I'm from the Social Security Administration, I'm from the IRS, I'm from your local police department. Medicare is an example of this type of a scam, but this is one where a person will impersonate an authority figure, they'll come to your door and they say, hey, we need more information from you. Those agencies don't need that information, they already have it. But unfortunately, we are seeing folks fall for this, and it's not hard to do. One of the things I stress in all these presentations is if you are the victim of one of these scams, it's not your fault. These things are designed to trick people. They are designed to trick smart people. And if you are the victim of one of these types of scams, the best thing to do is to contact local law enforcement. The best thing to do if you believe you are the victim of identity theft is to contact the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to open a case in your behalf. So, again, the main thing I stress to folks is that if you are caught up in one of these scams, or a loved one is caught up in one of these scams, or a friend or a neighbor is caught up in one of these scams, it's not your fault, it's not their fault. They are designed to trick us. So this is another one. Unfortunately, it does take advantage of folks who might be hard of hearing or have difficulty with eyesight, or are experiencing any number of medical conditions that make it difficult to identify folks, or difficult to understand what is going on. And criminals will take advantage of that. And it's a sad reality of what these folks are willing to do to defraud people. But it is a real one. So just like receiving an unsolicited email or phone call, an unsolicited knock on your door is also a cause for concern. So please be careful of these types of things. We do also see them with home improvement companies who will say, hey, we want to put solar panels on your roof. We want to redo your roof, redo your gutters. You guys have all gotten these, I'm sure, either in the mail or in person. But we want to make sure that folks are taking these seriously and understanding that this can also be an avenue for us to be taken advantage of. Cash transfer apps and swindles. So a lot of cases of cash transfer apps actually deal with money laundering. They're not looking for your money, they're looking to launder money that they've received illicitly through another source. This could be a stolen debit card, for example. So they're trying to move money out of an existing account to your account and then back into a legitimate account so they don't get caught for stealing the debit card in the first place. This might look like someone in a cash transfer application like Venmo, PayPal, Facebook Cash, Apple Cash, I forget what the Apple one is called, Apple Pay. Sending you a request, or actually rather sending you $50, for example, so they send you money, and then they message you and say, oh, that was an accident. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to send that to you. Can you return that fund? Most people will do the right thing, quote unquote, and send it back to them. If that's the case, that money comes out of your account and they've hidden the transaction that they were doing. It usually, again, comes from a stolen debit card. They're trying to launder the money out of that account. So we are seeing these frequently, especially with younger folks, folks my age and younger, through video game applications, online gaming, and social media. We're seeing lots of these types of transfers, and they can also take the form of these other things I've talked about, like celebrity imposter scams, where maybe an athlete or an actor or actress messages us, quote unquote, and you're being manipulated and they're posing as that person when they're not. So cash apps are something to be careful about. They do tend to be incredibly secure. They have layered encryption that is probably better than just using your debit card. at a gas station, for example. This is another thing I'll talk about. If you think about the way you go about your daily life, the way you use your money, if you use cash and you lose cash, it's gone, right? If you use your debit card, you use that. It's like just cash being withdrawn from your debit account. If you use credit card, you're using somebody else's money. That money is insured by a large credit card company or a bank. And if you have to dispute the charge, you can go to that card company and say, hey, this card was charged fraudulently. And they will say, oh, okay, we'll remove that charge from your account, as long as you can prove that. That's an additional layer of safety that debit card or cash does not offer. If you lose cash, you lose your debit card, that money could be gone, that account could be empty. If you use a credit card, you're able to do so. That offers an additional layer of protection because banks, credit card companies, financial institutions have layers of protection to protect their investment in you, the user. So we do recommend folks use credit cards over debit cards and make sure that they are spending safely when they are conducting purchases in person and also online. Another thing with cash apps is that with a cash app, for example, you have the application, which is secured. You have the device, which is also secured. So it's on your phone, you've got a password to the phone. The phone's data is encrypted by the company that produces the phone. The application's data is encrypted. And it's coming out of a secondary account. So if somebody wants to compromise it, they have to compromise several layers of security. So cash applications tend to be very safe when it comes to day-to-day transactions. But what we have to be careful about, again, is those folks trying to trick us into believing a transaction is legitimate when it is not. So that's the way I would sort of frame all of those. And if there's questions about that specifically, this is one I do get a lot of questions on. I'm happy to cover those at the end of the presentation. Social security scams. These have been around forever. They look just as they have in the past. It looks like a mail scam, it looks like an in-person contact or a phone call, but they're also coming through text and email and websites now. So they do look similar to ones that we've seen in the past, where individuals are attempting to compromise our social security information, particularly our social security number. This also applies to VA cards. It applies to driver's license ID number. And again, this is just another example of folks trying to contact us saying, hey, we need to update your account. Please provide this information, we'll get that fixed for you. Say, hey, we need to send you something, send us your address, give us your social security number, give us your driver's license number, whatever it may be. These types of contacts exist so that these personally identifiable pieces of information about our lives can be compromised, and things like credit cards can be opened in our names, and all sorts of negative outcomes financially. So this is one to keep aware of. The Social Security Administration is never going to call you and ask for information about you. If you get a call that says it's from the Social Security Administration, it is not them. They're going to contact you the way they've always done so, by mail. And if you receive any contact from an administration like the IRS, like Social Security Administration, like a local police department, the best thing to do is to call that agency, that department, and actually verify that information with them, because it's not going to be coming in that form. And those institutions, those agencies won't contact you that way. Account problem. This might look like a shipping order from Amazon, for example. You receive, the first example I had up there was the sort of false retailers. We see these sort of happen in concert with those false retailers and other groups that will reach out to us and attempt to make us believe that a transaction is legitimate. Another way they do this is by saying, hey, we need more account information from you. We tried to ship you this package, but it didn't arrive because we need to update your contact information. So this is another example of that. It's an unsolicited email or other type of communication that is requesting information about us, and we want to make sure that when we receive these types of messages that they're coming from a legitimate source, and that we are aware of who that came from, and then again, not revealing more information about us than we need to. Charities are a big one. This is something our agency deals with. We do see this affect seniors in this state across the country in just crazy numbers, really tons of people attempt to give to charities that are not legitimate. Or even if a charity is legitimate, maybe that charity doesn't spend the money in ways that we want it to spend the money. There are institutions out there, one of them is actually the Better Business Bureau, I talked about that before, but there's other institutions out there that rate the efficacy, the efficiency of charities. And we recommend that if you do conduct charitable giving, that you do due diligence and you research that charity beforehand. The other thing I would like to point out is that, for example, crowdsourced funding websites. So for example, maybe someone in your community, their house was destroyed or damaged in a fire. Maybe somebody lost some property due to a flood. Maybe somebody's child got sick. Crowdsourcing websites will build these stories to get aid from their community members. They're often legitimate. In fact, they're more legitimate than they're not. But there are, again, actors out there who would be willing to compromise our information and to manipulate us into getting them, money out of us. So we do recommend that if you are giving to a crowdsourcing website, that you know the direct recipient of that program. So you know the family that's affected, you know the person that may be sick, and you give in that way. If it's not someone you know, we don't recommend giving to those programs because we can't verify their efficacy and whether or not your money is being used in an appropriate way. The other thing with this, again, is it's really just a due diligence question. It's making sure that you know how your money is being spent and you know when your money is being spent. One of the last things I'll say about all of this before we get into Q&A is that a big way that these types of scams happen is not thousands of dollars at a time. It's $10, $15 a month. It's from 10,000 people, so they're making a lot of money, and you don't notice it. They're getting $10 out of your account every month. So that might look like a charity that's not legitimate. You just don't notice the difference in your bank statement. But it happens every month, it happens for years, and that money adds up over time. So a big thing to avoid these types of scams is to sign up for text alerts and email alerts for actions that are taken by your account, both deposits and withdrawals. And then make sure you're also taking advantage of your free credit reports that come from each credit reporting agency each year, and making sure that you don't have any outstanding credit in your name that you didn't approve. So I think we'll go into the Q&A here.
Connor, thank you very much. That was well done. I'm sure we have a lot of questions. You said something in the beginning that it's if you are scammed, it's not your fault. And I thought that was very telling. For those of you that get the Sun Gazette, you may have read that my wife and I, we had our joint credit card compromised. We were buying in Chester County, in the commissary, the county prison, we were buying stuff with our joint credit card. Really?
I'm from Chester County.
Oh, you are? Well,
It wasn't me.
it wasn't you, that's good. At the same time, it was kind of ironic, but probably not. I filed for unemployment benefits, and I was denied. Except the government said, but you can still get the COVID bonus. And I said, no. So there is a fraud number. I just wanted to offer folks, you always have the opportunity to call my office. If there is a very difficult question or one that your network of friends can't answer, we might not have the answer, but Jamie knows who to go to get it. And again, I think, and I did the show of hands who's not been in the seniors center, which was quite a few of you. I really would encourage you to start networking in places like this or South Windsor, the senior center, because it's not your fault, but boy, you folks have a great network if you utilize it. You need to talk amongst yourselves. When you experience something out of the ordinary, share that information. It's going to be so helpful, not only to you, but maybe someone else. And if you have a network of friends that you can question if something is or is not right. So I did want to start off with a question, and then I'll turn it over to whoever wants to ask a question. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I see a lot of writing going on. You had mentioned early on about credit card payments online.
Yeah.
Does someone like a PayPal offer any protection at all for these folks? go
It's
through
not
a
a-
PayPal?
Yes, with PayPal, it's not insured, it's not an insured transaction, but for example, if you fund your PayPal account with a credit card, you can go to the credit card company and revoke that transaction, which is why I said in that part of the presentation, don't use debit cards for these types of transactions online. Don't use debit cards at the gas station if you can help it. Another component of all of these things is things like credit card skimmers. This is a physical device that can be affixed to a point of sale machine. So like where you swipe your credit card or debit card at a gas station, where you swipe at an ATM. And what this device does, this thing called a credit card skimmer, is it skims the data off the card and sends it to an external device which says, hey, this is what this person's name is, this is what their account number is, this is what their credit card number is, and this is where the transaction took place. That information can then be used to compromise the account. So unfortunately, we are seeing these with relative frequency, probably less now than several years ago because the availability of online point of sale and just us doing more business online is just an easier way for businesses to be compromised by these types of tactics. You know, it's hard to just go to a gas station and get someone to get, you know, this thing attached to the device without getting noticed and not getting caught on camera. So it's just a higher level of risk for criminals. So we did see these more 5-10 years ago than we do now, but they're still out there. So again, it's really useful to use payment services applications and things like that. But don't tie a credit card, or excuse me, don't tie a debit card or a bank account number directly to it. Try and do it through a credit card first.
Very good advice, and I'll share with you, we had a hearing on the Real ID, and we had a gentleman down in Harrisburg that came up from Homeland Security, and after the hearing, we were, you know, just chit-chatting, and he said, you know, one of the biggest issues that we're having at the federal level, he said, when you get home, look in your wife's purse, see how many different credit cards, ID cards, get in her purse and have her show you what all she has there. And say, dear, if you lost that wallet today, who would you call? Nobody, because the numbers are on the credit cards. His recommendation was, and this goes for men too, get in front of a copier. If you don't have one, come to my office, I have one. Empty your wallets, photostat front and back of your credit cards, even your driver's license. Anyone here know what their driver's license number is on your card? But if you lost your driver's license, what would you do? This way, if you have a copy of it and then put it in a secured location in your house, it is so critically important because if your purse is gone, or gentlemen, your wallet's gone, what do? I can't even remember what all for credit cards and IDs I have in my wallet. So my wife and I do it now. We've done it now 3 years in a row. We do it the same time we change our batteries and our smoke detectors, and she groans every time I do it. But it's really a good piece of advice on making sure that your ID is not only secure, but you also have a hard copy of it in a safe location in case it does go missing. So with that, I'm going to open up to questions. Start on this side of the room. Remember, the only dumb question is one that's not asked. Yes, ma'am.
Are there common phone scams?
Yes.
going on lately?
Yes.
Everyone hear that? Is there common phone scams?
Yeah. So you're all, again, I brought one example up, the limited warranty or the expiring warranty scam that we're seeing with frequency. But you're probably all receiving phone calls constantly from scammers. Your phone is probably just ringing all the time. Mine is. The problem with that is that while there is a do not call list that is run by the FTC and state government contributes to it, and FBI deals with those numbers as well, those really exist for legitimate businesses that need to already understand that they're conducting business, above board, and you requested not to be contacted, they'll adhere to that standard. The problem is that illegitimate actors, organized crime, you name it, don't care whether or not you're on the do not call list. So they're just going to keep calling you anyway. There is a practice called spoofing, S-P-O-O-F-I-N-G. And what spoofing is where data can be manipulated to look like other data. So for example, a phone number can be manipulated to look like it's coming from the Social Security Administration, when it's not, it's coming from Russia or Ukraine. or Thailand. Okay, and these are normal practices for organized crime these days in order to, again, deceive and do that, this was the acronym I was talking about before. It comes up. Yeah, so this is the cheesy acronym I was talking about. It's sudden contact, act now, and then money or information required, scam. Okay, I rolled my eyes when I first read it, but it actually is helpful to think about it that way, because that is the way these conversations happen. It's sudden, it's a phone call, it's an email, it's a text message, and you need to act, you gotta do it right now, and we need information or we need money. There's tons of scams that do this. One of them actually that we're seeing with greater frequency is the grandma or grandpa scam. And this is where an actual person on the other side of the line calls you and says, hey grandma, grandpa, I'm in some trouble. My car broke down, I got arrested, whatever it is. Can you send me via wire transfer $500 so I can make bail, or so I can pay the mechanic to get me off the side of the road? These happen a lot. And we want to stress that, again, if you're receiving some type of contact that meets these criteria, that we be careful about that. And if it's the case that you can't really hear them that well on the phone, you do have, a granddaughter, because, granddaughter, grandson, son, cousin, niece, nephew, whatever it is. A lot of the times, these criminals will research you. They'll go to your Facebook page, they'll go to your Twitter page, they'll go to whatever social media you have, and they'll find out who your relatives are. They'll figure out what their first name is, and they'll use that first name in the call when they make it. So they're utilizing every single aspect of our digital lives to try and compromise this information about us and make us believe what they're saying is legitimate. So that's one example. There are probably thousands of them, but I would say that, that's what I would say. There's thousands of examples of phone-based scams, and they all sort of utilize the same techniques to defraud us.
Anyone ever get a phone call and there's nobody on the other end?
Yeah.
You understand what's tipped? It could be me butt dialing you. But it also, and we learned this in the last presentation by the Attorney General, it could also be a computer calling that's able to distinguish whether it's a human voice, whether it's a recorded voicemail voice, or if nobody answers at all. Now, if it's a human voice, that computer says, bingo, and they'll sell that to these folks that he's talking about, the underhanded individuals. It's actually a business. So when you get a phone call and nobody there, So my advice, and I think it's probably also your advice, if you do not recognize that number, guess what, folks? That's what voicemail's for. Don't answer it. Because if you answer a phone call and you don't know who it is, and even if it does, like you had mentioned, it could be Social Security, the latest one was Williamsport Hospital. I got one from Williamsport Hospital. You know how long Williamsport Hospital has been non-existent? I didn't answer. And guess what? I didn't get a voicemail either. So it must not have been too important because it obviously wasn't Williamsport Hospital. So there are a lot of things you can do to protect yourselves, and one of them is, if that isn't in your contacts, don't answer it. That's why you have voicemail. And it works every time it's tried. Okay, ma'am?
Yes, I have a,
So everyone can hear you.
can anybody hear me?
We can now.
Okay, I have informed delivery. And the one day I got informed delivery and it said that I got a bank statement coming in the mail. It shows a picture, And I didn't get that bank statement. So is that dangerous that somebody else could get their hands on my bank statement that actually has my account number on?
Informed delivery, you're talking about through the United States Postal Service.
That's right.
Paul Nyman has been trying to get me to do that, and I haven't done it yet.
It's his handy
But
dandy.
Connor, you want to take that?
Yeah, so if you receive notification that you were supposed to receive a package and you don't receive that package, that is a red flag. There are instances where we still have physical mail theft, where folks go around and look for mailboxes that are full and just grab whatever's in them, because there is lots of information that we get mailed to us that can compromise our identity and our data. So with that specifically, I would be careful and maybe contact your bank and make sure there's no no transactions that you don't recognize that have taken place. Yeah.
Yeah. The informed delivery was correct. It was
Okay.
actually my bank statement, but I
Okay.
never received it.
Right.
And I was wondering if it goes to some other person, can they do something with that bank statement since it has my account numbers and transactions and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, they would be able to perhaps impersonate you in a call with a bank representative because they have all your account information on there. Now, on most bank statements, your full account number is, at least on billing statements and account statements, your full account number is not displayed. That'll be on your checkbook, for example. So you'll have that account number in your checkbook and the routing number as well. Most bank statements don't show all of that information, but your address, your full name, financial transactions you've made, which are also used in identity verification as well. So for example, I don't know if anyone's ever lost a credit card or a debit card before, but when you call the bank to try and verify that it is you, they might ask you a question like, hey, what was your most recent transaction? And you'll say, oh, I spent $42.29 at X gas station filling up my tank. And they'll say, okay, great, yeah, I see that charge on the account. And they'll verify it that way. That's just one element of verification that they'll go through, but that is an example of how that data that's on that form could be used in concert with other information about you to compromise that account. So while they may not have gotten your account number directly, let's just say that it was stolen, they may not have gotten your account number or your routing number directly, but they could use some of the information on that to potentially compromise the account in the future. So,
One more.
I had called the bank when I didn't receive it in a couple days, and they told me there's no way they can use that information because they have like passwords and stuff, and they have a way of finding things out, but it's still an audit. It made me awful nervous.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment on that. And this is I think it's a very important thing, and that is for your folks' personal bank account, develop a relationship with your bank. Because each bank's different. But I'll give you a real quick story that's happened in the borough of Matursville. There was a lady that was contacted, and her she didn't recognize the number, but she answered the phone. And they said that her internet was for lack of payment, her internet was going to be disconnected. Now, if she wanted interrupted service, she had to pay X amount of dollars, but they would need her account number. She gave them their account number. And the police officer, my neighbor, is a police officer in Matursville. After the lady did that, she got to thinking about it and said, I think I just made a big mistake. So she called the police department there in Matursville Borough, and Bill responded and found out what bank. Thank God it was a local bank. Ran to the bank. Bill did himself. The lady was unable to move very well. And sure enough, within moments of the ending of that phone call, there was $10,000 that was removed from her account. The good news is it was a local bank, and the local bank said, unusual, red flag it, we're putting a 48-hour hold on it. So she did not lose the $10,000. I don't know specifically, maybe you do, Connor, what different banks can offer, but it could be very well that you could put like $1,000 a day limit or $500 a day limit on your account so that you don't get scammed, knowingly or unknowingly. Are you aware of what banks are doing?
Most financial institutions do have the ability to place limits on things like cash transfers and any transaction value. You should be able to do that. If you go to your relationship banker or whoever it is, whatever financial institution you work with, you should be able to verify that with them and say, hey, if I don't approve X, transfer over this value, you can set that up. That should be pretty uniform across any bank that you bank with. The other thing I would recommend related to that is make sure that you have text alerts and email alerts set up for transactions of any size. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's inconvenient to get a text message every time I spend $5, okay? But What happens if that $5 deduction is happening twice a month, every single month, and you just don't notice it because it's below the threshold for you to receive an alert from the bank? So if you have the option for text alerts from your bank or your credit card company, just set it to $0. If there's anything going in or out of the account, you should know about it.
And one of the ways that would apply is recently I had a constituent, a grandma, and granddaughter got herself tied up with drugs. And of course, granddaughter had access to grandma's house, had her account number. Grandma had about, I think it was like close to $30,000 in her checking account. Granddaughter removed a little bit every day over a 2-week period until the balance was zero. And no recourse. What are you going to do against your granddaughter? So again, I would encourage you to possibly go talk to your banker. Banking experience, right? So, you know, it might not hurt. Okay, back to this side. Question, sir.
I've heard many bad stories about reverse mortgages. Anything being done to help seniors with that?
Good question for Connor.
Sure. Yeah, so related to reverse mortgages, so the question is, I assume the question is, reverse mortgages can lead to negative financial outcomes for folks. You're refinancing existing debt, basically. When you do a reverse mortgage, you're taking a mortgage out on your mortgage. That's a problem for a lot of folks. You may need that money really badly, but that's probably not the best way to do it. It is basically taking out interest on interest at that point, and it's also tied up to the liability and the equity in your home, in the example of a mortgage. But this is something that banks do a lot, as well as they buy debt from other banks. It's a pretty common practice in the financial services industry and in banking in general. Debt is purchased because the collection of debt is money, and risk is reward for a lot of these banks. Some banks and some financial institutions and lenders have a higher threshold for risk than others. They say, hey, this person isn't likely to be able to make their mortgage payments, and they go to, let's say, a U.S. bank. So I guess probably would be a U.S. bank. But they go to a local bank, for example, that doesn't have a collection agency. They don't do any of their own debt collecting. So if somebody's not paying anymore, they sell that off to a collection agency. Other financial institutions might buy that debt and say, hey, Mr. Collection Agency, you keep collecting on this account, we'll assume the risk for that account not being, paid up on. And we'll just say, hey, we don't get the money, we don't get the money. And that kind of just keeps getting the can kicked down the road, and the interest on that loan, on that mortgage, accumulates over time to the point where the actual lender, or actually the lendee, the person who owns the mortgage or has the mortgage, and the mortgage's liability can no longer pay for it. And that's when they come after your house. And that's unfortunately sort of a reality of that market. Whether or not there's anything being done legislatively, I can't comment on that, but it's something that we advise consumers to be very aware of. Any chance you have high interest debt, especially in instances where, for example, student loans, where they can go after a car, they can go after a house, whatever it is. They can go after, if somebody is deceased, they can go after whoever their beneficiaries are after they pass away. You have to be very careful about that kind of debt.
And again, I think, just working with if you have a financial advisor, or if, there's plenty of them out there, to really analyze if it's right or wrong for you. Because there are reverse mortgages that do work for individuals.
I'm talking more on deception.
Deception?
Practices.
Oh boy, well,
Yeah,
AAG specifically is one.
that would be, so in regards to deceptive practices, I will leave this up here. I'm not Michelle Nutter, that's actually my colleague. We have a shared deck, and I didn't realize her name was still in here. But if you reach out to the Bureau of Consumer Protection, which is run by the Office of the Attorney General here in Pennsylvania, and reach out to our email accounts as well, and provide information on the issue, I would do that. And you can also work with your representative's office. Great, that's awesome.
and Connor, don't you have that number back there with the stuff that you brought?
Yes, yeah, that'll be on a lot of the stuff we're handing out too.
There you go. When in doubt, make phone calls. Call my office, call somebody. Just don't do it on your own.
Ironically, today I got a phone call from a gentleman who had a very strong Mexican accent, telling me he was from Social Security and I was in legal trouble. So when I pressed him what his name was, because I wasn't about to give him my name, he quickly hung up. So if you hear from anybody, that's...
Yeah.
Was it Spanish or Mexican?
Have you gotten that
I'm
call?
just joking.
Have you gotten that call as well, sir?
Yeah.
Received the same call, somebody, an
Several times.
actual person on the line. Can I ask you about that? Do you mind if I ask you about the call you received? So what did it sound like when they called you? How did they identify themselves?
Social Security,
Yeah.
we're gonna arrest you and all this crap.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I want my address. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I got.
They hung up, that's it. So when you start talking to them, sometimes they hang up.
Right.
My question is, these people make these phone calls, and you want to call them back, and get a thing on there where the number's not in use. How do they use that number?
All
That's what I'd like to know.
It's all computer generated. Remember I said Williamsport Hospital showed up on the voter ID, the voter, not the voter, the phone ID.
Yeah.
It's all computer generated. And I've talked to the Attorney General, and the problem is it's like whack-a-mole.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it is.
But,
Absolutely.
I mean, it could be, that phone call could have been originated out of your neighbor's garage, or it could be halfway around the world in India, or Thailand.
That's right, but how are they
And when
going to
they-
use that number without someone is getting paid for that number? Using a fake number.
It's all fake.
Yeah, it's
Computer
I'd like to
generated.
sue Verizon, is what I want.
Well, actually, Verizon is being very helpful with the state, in trying to slow down a lot of this stuff. It literally is whack-a-mole with technology. And it's, by the time we geared up enough of you guys to go get the bad guys, they're gone
Oh, yeah.
without a trace.
Yeah,
They could be working out of a hotel room tonight. Tomorrow night, they might be halfway across Pennsylvania somewhere working. And the next day, they could be somewhere else. You guys are the defense. Don't answer that phone, unless you know the number. Don't get on that calling list, because it's being sold. There's stuff that you guys can do to protect yourselves, and that's what we're asking everyone to do. Wait, I got some other ones here that we need. If that's okay, I'll come back. Mr. Miller.
One of the things I've gotten recently is solar panel company wants to put panels on my house. And I'm on both the federal and state do not call list. And if you want to be put on our do not call list, press 2. Well, I know, hang up. I just hang up. Now, the reason I answer the call is I'm blind, I have my glasses in my pocket. I can't see what the phone says. I'm sorry, I need a large print. But I want to know, how come we can't fight back and have electronically, when I get a call, I can hit star 86 right in the middle of the call and alerts the phone company, alerts the Attorney General, hey, why is Jeff Whelan's phone number being used to call Scott?
I did try to call you the
Phone
other
calls you have my head.
Scott, in your situation, with being legally blind, so to speak, and cannot see,
Well, I can't see that.
don't answer the damn phone. Tell all your friends and neighbors, and even tell me. If I want to call you, leave a voicemail.
Well, I take your call.
Thanks.
Hi, Jamie. How many have cell phones?
We all do.
Okay, good. Because most companies or cell phones, just the cell phone itself, actually has something on it that you can turn on. So if the number is not in your contacts, it will automatically go to voicemail. So you don't even have to question this, could this be, I'm not sure. something, they're gonna leave a voicemail message. Now you have to make sure your voicemail box is set up. I don't know, some people don't have their voicemail boxes set up. I mean, that's not so bad either, because then you don't get messages from anybody. But just something to think about, your phone probably does have that on it, and that is an option for you.
But it literally is whack-a-mole. You know, we figure out a way to slow them down and then they circumvent it. So it's, at times I want to get rid of everything. Go back to the old times.
Okay, I have a problem. Last year, in January, I received a 1099 form from Ohio for unemployment benefits. Because of $1,400.
Yeah.
I did get it resolved, I got a corrected form saying, oh, you don't have to pay it. Last week, I received a letter again from the Ohio Job and Family Services about waiver for unemployment benefit. What do I do? Where do I go?
That's a good question. I would actually work with your representative's office on that. They'd be able to.
Yeah, get with Jamie afterwards and we'll chase it down. I'm not from Ohio, whether they're legitimate or not. Where'd you work at in Ohio? I'm just kidding.
We had background.
Okay, to the back. Sir.
The people, their phone number, I have a phone, and if it's a number that I don't want to be answering, I can push a button and block that number,
Yes.
and then erase it. And then from then on,
Yeah.
that phone number comes up on my phone. It does one ring and hangs up.
Yes.
So there are means on most phones where you can block numbers.
That's
I've
correct.
been getting hundreds of calls from people trying to sell me Medicare supplement plans.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is go on the internet and look at the supplement plan, and you get 10 calls. And every one of them, I can block at any rate and stop all that nonsense.
Yeah, it's so with block caller lists. So with block caller lists, everyone has the ability, in their device to go in and block a specific number. You can do that. What it will do, exactly as you said, it will lead to that number calling you again and getting sent, actually not even sent to voicemail, but they won't get sent to voicemail at all. It'll disconnect the call. On the end of the caller, it'll say that this line has been disconnected. So what you would receive if you called a phone number that's no longer in existence. So that is set up by the phone companies to do that. Unfortunately, like we've said before with a couple other instances of this, is this practice called spoofing, where a caller can make a phone number look like another phone number. So the device itself registers it as, X phone number, but it's actually coming from a different address. So there are ways, unfortunately, for criminals to get around that blocking feature.
I get a lot of calls from all over the country trying to sell me stuff. Now, if they leave a message, I listen to a little bit of what they're going into, then I push the block button and then erase.
Now, is this on your home phone or your cell phone?
On my home phone.
Okay. All right. But do you have a cell phone?
I have one, but I don't use it.
I'd suggest you go the other way.
I'm not internet, whatever. I can't, my son-in-law and daughter bought me one of those smartphones.
How smart is it?
It was too smart for me because I couldn't use it.
So is mine.
Now I've got a simple flip phone that I use in case of emergency.
But if you're getting, and I'm just going to offer this as a thought, you guys can chime in, but I'm thinking that if you're getting a lot of phone calls on your home phone, you're on one of those lists that I were talking. At some point, you answered the phone, and a computer identified you as a human being, and your number has been sold all over the world. So you have a couple of options. One, get rid of that hardwired phone. Two, get a different number and don't answer the phone anymore. Use your voicemail. Any other thoughts, Connor?
Yeah, I think that's I do think that's probably the best strategy. If you are receiving these calls and it is just intolerable, I would get a new phone number. And exactly as you said, these are market research firms, and it is actually quite legitimate for these companies to operate and just go through call lists and call people to see whether or not a number has a person associated with it, or for example, if it's a business line. This is a legitimate practice, unfortunately, that consumers are dealing with the consequences of, because marketing firms and legitimate businesses want to know whether or not an actual person is behind an account. But illegitimate actors are using the same practices and the same data to defraud people with that information. So again, they're really the best strategy is to change your number.
But I've had the same phone number for 66 years.
That's the.
Trust me, we'll
Everybody in
understand.
the family has their phone number.
A lot of people have your phone number.
I've been several months trying to update everybody on a new phone number.
You know, I just wanted to relay a story back to how they probably got your number and it was sold worldwide. The Attorney General several years ago worked with, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Oklahoma. They did a sting operation. They had isolated where these calls, the no communication calls were coming from. So they our Attorney General worked with Oklahoma's Attorney General, and they actually conducted a raid. They had isolated to a residential home. When they entered the home, how many laptops were in there?
I'm not familiar.
Hundreds.
I'm not familiar with this.
Hundreds of laptops.
Yeah.
And they start with the very, very first zip code and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. They can do millions of them a day, computer can. And they're looking for someone to answer. And the computer can identify whether it's a voicemail or if it's an actual human. If it's an actual human, like I said, your number now just went all over the world.
My number is not through Verizon, it's a field IP to the computer. I changed over years ago.
Voice Internet Protocol.
Yeah. And for that, I don't have the problem I used to. I started having problems on internet, voicemail, or on regular email, that if I go in and read something, the next day I get a dozen, and it started by getting 50, 60 emails a day.
You're a popular guy.
I had to go through all of them and unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Now I get 5 or 6.
It's irritating. Questions back here? Sir.
I just have a comment. I can hear loud. With regards to spoofing numbers, my son works for Cisco Systems, and he can use anybody's phone number he wants to.
Yeah.
In any time. Myself, I'm the oddball here because I love the phone calls. I mess with them all day. And I get anywhere from 20 to 40 of them a day between my home phone and my cell phone. Sometimes I got a phone. But I have received 3 phone calls from my own cell phone number. That's pull that off.
Yeah, it's again, it's.
What other?
Yeah.
I have never run into a problem here. I found I'm very careful. If they know my name, my address, I respond back with my name. If they don't know my name and ask my name, I'm tell them I'm Joe Giggly Gotts. And if they have an address, you can't believe the mail I get to Joe Giggly Gotts.
Yeah.
It's fun if you're careful.
Exactly.
But
I think that's a fair point. My recommendation is going to be that you shouldn't respond when they do call you, but there is actually a whole industry of folks on YouTube and on other applications that go out there and they just mess with scammers. I'm sure you've seen some of these videos. Maybe if you're online, if you're on Facebook or wherever it is, there are folks out there who actually maybe make a living off of messing with scammers. I can name a couple on YouTube. And
You can monetize on YouTube. You make the money.
I've had 3 phone calls since we've sat down here.
I'm sure I have too. We did have a question related to checking for building and remodeling.
Contractors.
Yeah, contractors, just that. Yeah. So dealing with fraudulent contractors, dealing with folks who sign up to do a project for you, maybe you put a down payment on the project, half upfront, whatever it might be, and then they don't do the work, that's a problem. So, I mean, obviously. But the thing we do recommend folks use is, again, that Better Business Bureau is a great resource to reach out to. And then also, frankly, work with people that your friends or family have worked with, especially in the case of local contractors, because it might be somebody who's just not set up online, maybe doesn't have a website, but your friends and family have used them before and they trust them. So really, it's the same thing like getting a relationship with your local bank or wherever. You want to try and utilize local services that other folks in your community trust. Facebook is a good place to get those types of reviews, but if you're seeing lots of reviews for somebody and you don't know anybody who reviewed them, it's pretty easy to set up a fake account and review a business 20 times with fake names and make it look legitimate, but it's not. So again, we do recommend that you use institutions like the Better Business Bureau and actually probably the local Chamber of Commerce and other institutions like that to verify the work that you're having done by a contractor.
Yeah, and I will say again, right here in this room is a great way to network. If you need something done at your house, start asking around. Somebody knows somebody. I mean, it's one of the reasons we're blessed here in Lycoming County. We have a large county, small community with great acoustics. So, just ask around. In my previous life, I was a contractor, and I would always encourage people that were looking for work to be done to go look at my previous work. Here's a list of my customers. This is where we did this. You want this done? That's similar to what we did at this place. You can go visit them. Mr. Maurer, you probably do the same thing with your electrical. So, of course, everyone knows you, electricity. So, but that's my thought on that. Anybody over on this side? Yes, sir.
Is there any
And I'll jump over.
agencies trying to crack down on these people?
Here, guys, speak into this so we can hear you. So everyone can hear you.
All right, is there any law enforcement agencies trying to crack down on these people? Seems
Yeah.
like the FBI or somebody.
Absolutely. So our agency
They're not doing their job.
we're busting these folks every day, and that's something that I can say that this agency is doing on a regular basis. Is that when we receive consumer complaints to agency resources like the Bureau of Consumer Protection, which you have contact information for, if you want to reach out to us, please do. These folks are busting people every day. The problem is, we've said it before, kind of in this presentation, like the phone calls, it's whack-a-mole. We're dealing with such a volume of this behavior throughout the Commonwealth and frankly throughout the country that while law enforcement, yes, is working to deal with these bad actors and put people in jail for defrauding people, there's a lot of them out there, and they are as smart as any business, in some cases quite a lot smarter, and they are developing new tactics to deceive law enforcement and consumers. So yes, there is an effort to deal with these problems, to deal with these types of scammers, but ultimately it is a very pervasive problem, and unfortunately the reason I do what I do is to try and get awareness about these issues out here so that individuals can protect themselves, so that we don't have to get involved after a crime has occurred and after loss has happened and after somebody's been defrauded. But rather we can get a tip, for example, that says, hey, this person's out here knocking on doors, trying to get personally identifiable information from folks, and we can go out and figure out who that is and make sure they don't keep doing it. So it is a very difficult issue. It's, I don't want to call it intractable, but it does have elements of that, and we have to just be vigilant and be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep ourselves safe.
And I agree, it's just very, very frustrating. And you hit on it earlier today about the $10, $15, $20 scams.
Yeah.
A lot of people will get scammed for 10 or 15 and say, darn it, and not report it. But I know your agency, me working with your agency at different times, it is so important, even if you get scammed for $10, report it. Because cumulative, that effect, where they're operating, how it occurred, it kind of leads law enforcement down that rabbit hole. And that's the only way they're gonna be able to figure out what's in that rabbit hole is if everyone reports even the smallest amount. Don't let it go. Report it.
Yeah, the other thing I'll build off, the thing I'll build off of with that is that, you may report a specific instance of scam. And we may not be able to do something about that specific instance. We'll try and go to work on your behalf, especially if there's been loss and you've lost something or something's been defrauded, or for example, we'll connect you with resources like the FTC to open an identity theft case. But what is very helpful about these types of reporting is even if we can't help in that specific instance, if we get that report from 10,000 people and they all share with us just a little bit more information about the folks that are perpetrating these acts against folks here in the Commonwealth, then we have more information to open an investigation and potentially get these guys. So it is really helpful that we utilize resources like this, and if there's anything wrong, it's not always going to result in an investigation being open, but we want to know about it anyway, just in case there needs to be. So that's what I would say about that. We have one back here, but actually.
Oh, I have a lady back here in the back.
We've got one here. Get a chance.
I promise.
Everyone always has questions, so we'll try and get to everything.
Could you say something about what documents should be shredded, and also where can we get them shredded?
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah, actually, that might be. Do you guys hold shredding of everything?
We do not. We have private businesses around that will do the shredding. Jamie, are you aware of anybody that's offering shredding in the future?
No, but I'm sure that I could contact, I don't think it would be a problem to contact people.
Does Steph know?
I just was reading someplace that they would do your shredding as well.
Yes.
I don't know about the North Central Site Service.
North Central Site
It
Service?
used to be, yeah, they used to do
North
it.
Central Site, I know.
Site, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know, I wasn't sure if they were still doing it or not, but that's generally where you would go or who would shred it.
They shred because we work with them as an agency and they
Right.
shred. I'm just not sure if there's a cost. However, they used to hold days that you could bring all your stuff and they would shred it.
We should do that with a drug take-back day, too.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we work together and kind of have a day where people can bring it to a senior center.
One of the things I would say about shredding personal documents, obviously we have to keep tax forms, income forms for a number of years in case there's an IRS audit. I believe 6 years back is the rule of thumb for that. So you do want to keep those types of tax documents. But anything that's like, a monthly bank statement, credit card statement, anything that's just sort of normal communications from a government agency or from a financial institution, I would get rid of those every month. And again, sign up for those either digital alerts or mail to keep an eye on what's going on with your accounts. But shredding those on a regular basis and not keeping them in your home is a better strategy, unless you absolutely need that physical copy. We have a cheesy tagline that we use is that we say, you don't want spaghetti, you want confetti when you shred something. You don't want to just shred vertically along the document, you want to shred vertically and horizontally so that you get small pieces of paper that can't be patched back together. So there are a lot of shredders that are available in the market that shred down. They tend to be cheaper, but what you really want to buy is one that shreds down and across. And I do recommend that folks have a shredder in their home because we receive a lot of mail. A lot of that mail has this identifiable information on it. And if it's stolen, that can be a big problem. So I do recommend you shred frequently. Take advantage of any businesses or community organizations that do free shredding events where you can just go drop off your documents and have them shredded for you. Certainly take advantage of that. But I do really recommend that folks have a shredder in the home or have a family member that has one that they can take them to.
Ma'am, you asked a question about how long to save the documents? Okay, but I always said 7 years. And,
7 years.
yeah, and if it's anything regarding your employment, save it forever. Be helpful the way
Yeah, that's true.
some of the state agencies are working with me, but that would be critical. Hotel key cards, and I don't know if you have dealt with that.
Yeah.
I had a young man that was going to Penn College at the time in electronics, and his class project was taking, these key cards when you check into a hotel, and he developed a machine, or not a machine, a computer, a slider that could extract my name, address, and the credit card number that I use from that hotel key card. So whenever you check into a hotel and they give you a card, do not return it. Take it home, put it in that shredder. So just keep that in mind. That's how sometimes a lot of your information is hijacked. You know, is through means such as that. Something you might not think about. You said you had a question, right? Right here? Yeah.
Quite a few years ago.
Closer to
Quite a few years ago, when my husband and I traveled a lot, I went to auto pay, and all my bills went to auto pay, and then I had a record of what I spent for the year. The only thing I didn't put in was my credit card, because I didn't know how much would be going out of my account. So that I thought was the safest thing. Then one day, not too long ago, I got a call, and they said they were from my power plant. They didn't say PPL, but that's what they said. And they said, you have a bill for $496. And when he said that, I just hung up. Because I knew the next thing was that he was going to say, we will pay your bill and you can reimburse us and you won't be charged another day. So my question to you is it okay to have an auto pay? Because I've done that now probably for 2 years. And the only thing that I don't have is, well, I do now. I have a charge to my bank. My credit card is charged to my bank. I think it's important that people check their bank statements every month, because some of these scammers can get a $10, $20, and you don't think anything of it when you just lightly look at the account. But if you check it every month, then you're going to pick up when there's a scam. The other thing is that when I get calls that I don't know the number, I do what you say. I never answer. I leave it to go to the, if they leave me a message, then I know it's somebody. But recently, I've been getting this number that I don't recognize, and it's not always the same number. And so I don't answer it. And then I go to my message, and I get this silent message, and then somebody comes up and says, thank you. Now, is that something that they can pick up on?
Yeah, so what that sounds like is a couple things. We have a couple things going on here. So you have an auto pay issue where maybe a collection agency, maybe an illegitimate actor, maybe it's probably not the power company. It doesn't sound like it is anyway. Yeah. Right. So in this case specifically, the group that reached out to you is probably looking for either an outstanding payment. Do you have verification that your payments were being made on your power bill? Yeah. Okay. So in that case, that's especially going to be an instance of fraud, where they are reaching out to try and just manipulate you and make you believe you've got an outstanding payment you do not owe. And in that, they're looking for you to either send them banking information and set up a new payment for the outstanding debt that you owe them, and then move forward from there. Auto pay is safe. I mean, as long as you're doing it through your bank to a legitimate institution, there's nothing that's wrong with auto pay and having that set up on your account. As long as it, again, is going to, it's going from your account to a legitimate account that you set up. I would say there's no.
I agree with you. Auto pay is the way to go. Remember I told you how my wife groans every time I say empty your purse. We're going to take, copies of everything that's in your purse and my wallet. Here's something that we're going to add. Because when our credit card was hacked, remember I was talking about Chester County Commissary to Prison? Can you remember what all's tied to that credit card? We couldn't. You got garbage, you got cable, you have Culligan Water. I mean, we did not know what we had on auto. Our fault. So you might want to write that down too. If you do have auto pay like she recommends and I recommend, auto pay, but make sure you write it down so you can remember what all is tied to that. And if you can run it through a credit card, you know, and then right to your bank account. That brings up something, you know, did you ever get a, you know, you have to pay a tax. It could be a school tax, could be state tax, IRS. And they want you to write your social security number in the memo section. Just do the last 4 digits. Do not write your social security number on a memo part of a check. Same way when you make a credit card payment, use the last 4 digits of the credit card. Do not put the credit card number on your memo on your check, just the last 4 digits. If they can't figure out who you are, they got a problem, they'll get back in touch with you. Yep, any of that. You don't have to provide the whole number. So.
One more thing on that case. One thing I'd like to add about dealing with auto pay, yes, it's safe, but it's like anything, you have to do the due diligence. You have to check at the beginning of the month to make sure that there aren't any transactions that you're not expecting. I had a gentleman come up to me at a senior fair event in, actually it was Lincoln County, it was an elementary school a few weeks ago. The gentleman approached me and said, hey, I received a package for a service that I wanted to buy online. I received the package once, and then they started sending it to me every single month. They billed me over and over again for it. He wasn't aware that he had signed up for a recurring service. So he needed to go back to that retailer or whatever it was and say, hey, I only wanted this once. So, you know, even if it is a legitimate transaction, it might be the case, for example, maybe an internet service that you are only going to use once, that it sets up to be a recurring payment. Or, for another example, a free trial of a service, which you sign up for, get your free month, and then forget to cancel. And the reason they do those free trials is so that you do forget. Because you don't have to pay for it that day, but you will 30 days from now. So that's something to keep in mind. And just be aware when you do have auto pay set up, you're checking every month.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Anybody over on this side? This side. Mr. Miller. Always
You
fascinating.
said something that I find concerning. You said something earlier that I find concerning. I'm on both federal and state do not call list.
Yeah.
And you said legitimate marketing companies. I want my $100 if they call me. You know, because supposedly you're entitled to $100. If a legitimate company calls me that was not supposed to, I want my $100. And the lady was asking about a shredding thing. Later this month, I got a little postcard from Senator Yaw and Joe Camp in Montoursville on Fairfield Drive. I think it's the 23rd of September. They are having a get-together, and 2 boxes of stuff will be shredded, if I remember it correctly.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, you sure, man.
Just along the lines of shredding, I don't need that. Think about like your computers. I don't know how many people have computers too that they get rid of. There are chips in there that has a whole lot of information on. So just, you know, throwing it in the garbage or handing it off to somebody isn't necessarily a good idea. Jane, back there, told me just now
Jane, stand up.
that there's somewhere in Woolrich, right? Was it Woolrich?
Yeah, there's I can't remember exactly, there are Avis, Woolrich, Lock Haven that shred your computer.
Yeah,
Chips.
hard drives, yeah.
That's the hard drive.
That's an excellent point.
So it's a
Yeah.
whole of that. They have everything that you ever did on that computer.
That is an excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. The fact of the matter is that on our cell phones, on our personal computers, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, there's a record of everything you've ever done on that device. It's stored locally, but it's also stored online. So in a lot of cases, these are cloud-based storage services, so your information is stored externally. But that said, a lot of those companies, I think of Amazon Web Services, I think of Microsoft, a lot of those companies obviously have protections of their own to guard that data when it's online. But if you have your cell phone stolen, or if you throw out a laptop, and somebody on the side of the road sees a laptop and says, oh, a free laptop, great, and you haven't wiped that device of your personally identifiable data, even if you have fully wiped that device, you can go in and restore the disk and actually retrieve most of that information. So if you truly want a device to never be associated with you again, it has to be destroyed. And that's the only way you'd actually be able to get rid of it. I've actually taken a drill to hard drives in the past and destroyed the hard drive when I was done with it, because I don't want to throw it out and have it be recycled and have someone pick it up and have my data. So I do recommend using services like that. There's a lot of e-waste services and companies out there that do take laptops, that do take old cell phones. Highly recommend you take advantage of those and get rid of those devices in a responsible way. And frankly, the other thing is that if you throw out a laptop, you throw out a cell phone, it's got a lithium battery in it, and they're just terrible for the environment. It gets into water sources. Just don't throw them out. Try and take them to an e-waste or recycle. And I'm sure there's a lot in the community to take advantage of.
Connor, are you going to stick around for a little bit after this? How about a round of applause for Connor? Appreciate it, Connor. Hope to have you back. We'll be doing more of these now that we're darn near out of this pandemic. So, again, Connor's going to be hanging here. If you guys have any specific questions that you may or may not wanted to ask in public, he'll be here. He'll go to that corner and you can whisper in his ear. But thank you so very much. Please do me a favor. Spread the word. I'm going to continue to get permission from Jamie. Jamie, can I have more of these?
Yes, I do. I want to try to, one. At least one.
Okay, so we are going to continue to have these. So spread the word if you thought it was helpful and valuable and what you learned here. Please share amongst, your family and friends and your circle, because again, if you didn't hear what Connor was saying, we're the front line. We're the frontline bees that we can do a lot on our own to protect everyone else. So with that, thank you again, Connor, and look forward to our next one, and maybe it'll be even a bigger crowd once we're out of this pandemic.